Got a little mute there, Sarge. Uh-oh. All right. Sarge isn't going to take it. Oh, there he goes.
Thursday night. It's super late for you guys, at least. And to a Jets podcast. We are currently the Big Blue Beards, and we're not switching to a Jets podcast. I am tired. I am rusty as hell.
What's going on, man? Yeah, the little bit of internet issues I can see a little bit here, but no problem. We'll go through them and figure it out. But yeah, man, but we haven't been talked since last week. Or we didn't get to meet up last week, so a lot of shit has happened over the last couple of weeks. And we got our guest Sal here. Sal is
we haven't had too much that we need to talk about.
Yeah, of course not. Nothing going on right now in the peak of free agency and draft time.
Yeah, not too much. No.
Anyways, we had some signings here. I know a lot of people were hoping we'd make some moves going into here. I know a big one was everybody wanted a linebacker, and take us back to about a week ago. We were sitting there at the start of free agency, and there was nothing happening. We were seeing TJ Edwards, who was connections to our assistant GM Brandon Brown, coming off the board. We had David Long, people like Jermaine Pratt. We kept hearing names of. And linebackers were coming off the board one after one. Nobody's going. Then Tremaine Edmond, the guy everybody wanted, the big name free agent, he goes off. They were, what are we doing? And then we went and grabbed Bobby Okereke, or Okereke. It's pronounced it like Pat McAfee. Yeah. What'd you guys think of that? Sarge, what'd you think of the Bobby Okereke signing? There, Sarge?
Not sure.
I'm having some cycling issues. Guys, talk without me.
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
Goddamn thing again.
Sal, what'd you think of the Bobby Okereke signing? I know there was a lot of free agents coming off board at lower prices than we thought. What was your initial reaction to that?
I thought it was a good signing. I mean, it was fair value. Okereke is a young linebacker. When he was coming out of Stanford, he was very athletic. I think his issue was more being kind of a guy who could hit the gaps and maintain his tackles, but he was always fast, athletic. He's become a better player in the NFL. I think playing in that Indianapolis system has helped him a lot. Playing next to guys like Shaq Leonard has helped him a lot. Mm-hmm. So I think he's a really solid signing. He's a good upside guy. I mean, I don't think he's got the Tremaine Edmonds upside.
Yeah.
But I think this is a guy that you can pencil in as your 3-4 year will linebacker.
Yeah.
And I think the only concern I have, it's not with him specifically, it's just that, I think our biggest issue is still having a true Mike linebacker.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, he can play that, but if you saw this year when he was playing Will alongside Shaq Leonard, he was really solid. When he was forced to play Mike, he was a little bit less effective. So I hope we can still find a true Mike. Maybe it's Darren Beavers, right? Maybe Beavers is healthy and he steps into that role. I was in a space, like a Twitter space on the weekend, and Carl Banks popped in and we were talking about this, and he sent me a DM. He's like, "Oh no, it's definitely Beavers. He's going to be the Mike."
All right.
So he has a lot of confidence. I'm like, all right, well, I hope he's healthy. He tore his ACL, but as long as he's playing Will, I think he's a phenomenal signing. I really do. I think he has good value, and he's definitely a 4-year linebacker for us, I think.
Yeah, Giants legends. Carl Banks thinks he's gonna be our Mike. That's good enough for me. Yeah, man, I liked it. I know my initial reaction, which was basically just was like I saw all those prices of the other linebackers, and I was expecting a little bit lower because of that, but like at the same time, I thought back of it, it really was a good deal. And if you asked me a day earlier, I'd be like, that's phenomenal. Like I thought a guy like that would go for 11, 12. We got him for 10. And honestly, the more I looked into it is like TJ Edwards is a really good player. He's a very all-around player, more of that Mike linebacker, but like he's really limited athletically with Okereke. He kind of got drafted to be somebody who Colts thought they could develop and become. They saw him in a similar light when they took Shaq Leonard, where they thought when they took Shaq Leonard, this is a guy who has a lot of upside, and that was I think a lot of thought with Okereke, and they took him, and he's only gotten better every single year since he's been there, and he's putting it up statistically, and now he's just got to kind of bring. And you can see the flashes of him being an impact player. I think that's something that hopefully he just keeps getting better. And we're looking at this like, wow, that was an awesome signing.
Yeah, I think we will be. I really like the signing.
Yeah, I really don't see a way that signing is we're going to look back at and that wasn't a good signing.
Yeah, no, he's already too good a player. I think he already is valued at least at the level he's being paid. So it's hard to imagine regression where you would look at it as bad value.
Yeah, it's like even when you're just looking at if you're box score scouting him and you're you're looking at a guy who has 150 plus tackles, it's like, it's like some of those numbers can be fake with these types of guys, but when you're paying him what he's paying him, it's like that's good. That's a good result no matter what, no matter what the guy is, type of thing.
Absolutely.
And I brought this one up. You look at some like the RAS scores for him. You can see that arm length. That arm length is exactly what we had for Edmonds, 34.5. So even though he's, you can see those yellows with the height and the weight, he is he's a little bit of a smaller guy. He's got incredible speed. He's got some really good explosiveness still, some really good agility. So I think he's a guy who definitely can keep developing and really is a special athlete at the linebacker position.
Yep.
We got you back yet, Sarge?
I'm in it like it. It's fucking, it's ridiculous. I kind of want to touch on something overall.
Yeah,
dude, it's I don't know what's wrong. I really wish I did because I have level. If I didn't know what's wrong, but one thing I want to touch on, if I make it through this, is in general. If all of the signings as a whole, there's a lot of guys on deals which you got to be a little bit excited for it.
Mm-hmm.
The way the contracts are structured is it puts a lot of protection in for the team. So you can tell that the way Shane and Brandon Brown and who was that guy that we wanted to fire at the end of last season with Gettleman?
Kevin Abrams.
Kevin Abrams.
Yeah.
Kevin Abrams actually has a chance to make a salary cap war. And this and the other thing, it's albatross of Dave Gettleman around your neck. Apparently, a lot of these signings are team protected. Like these guys have per game bonuses so that if you're missing games, we're not just shelling out money for guys who aren't playing. This is the smartest way I've seen contracts structured for this team, probably, or at least since George Young, the GM, and they had a salary cap. So you got to be really excited, not just about the players, but about how the contracts themselves are being structured. You've gotten a lot of protection from the team, especially down the road. We're not pushing cap down the road like this or the Cowboys, who are going to be paying Zach Martin after he retires for at least a decade.
Yeah,
they just has contract down. it's eventually come back to kill him. Eventually.
Yeah. And like they are backloading it, but it's not like what it was with Gettleman, where it's like Leonard Williams' first year was like 4 million and the next year was like 23 million. It's it's pretty standard to backload contracts in the NFL. Some teams don't do it, but for the most part, like they wanted to raise with the cap. So yeah, and I do agree. Like I think Paris Campbell is like that's like the prime example of like I haven't seen us use incentives like that, where it's just like, look, we like prove you're worth this by just staying on the field. If you go up and play games, we'll pay you. Like just prove you, because we think you're worth it if you're on the field. So just show it by you can stay on the field. So like ones like that are definitely, I think that was those are smart ways to do contracts, where you're trying to get them to earn what they're worth, especially when you're taking so many shots on these in a lot of injury risk guys. It seems like more than we necessarily be comfortable with, but you're taking high upside shots.
Right.
What do you think of the contract so far, Sal?
Yeah, I think they're fine. I think that they've basically taken kind of a hedged risk approach, like you guys said, where they're kind of going with like we're going to sign as many guys as we can to fill these roles to incentive based and low guarantee value contracts, at least at wide receiver, right?
Yeah.
And I think where they actually spent some real money were at positions where they got impact players, like I think Okereke and obviously the trade.
Waller.
For Waller, those are major impact players, and I think they put some money into that, and that's reasonable. The other guys, I agree. Like I actually really like the Campbell signing. I wasn't huge on Paris Campbell coming into the free agency market because I thought he might actually get a guaranteed deal somewhere for more money. But when I saw what they signed him for, I mean, he is a high upside guy. He's fast. He was kind of the star on that Terry McLaurin Ohio State team. Just never put it together in the NFL, probably due to injuries more than anything. So I like the way they structured it. I think individually the contracts on a 1-by-1 basis have been structured fairly well. When I mean, I'm going to exclude the Jones and the Barkley situations from now because that's completely different. But everything, they were absolutely exceptions. But everything else, I think they've done a pretty good job in actually structuring the contract. And you see, even today, they've signed a bunch of guys, to basically depth signings. And I like your tweet, Monty, where you're like, I'm glad he's getting all his depth signings out of the way so we can freak out all at once and get it out of our system.
Yeah, instead of doing it every other day, we're like, another depth guy.
Right. Like roster spot number 89. Oh no, like so. And I don't love the guys they brought in, but at the end of the day, you need bodies. I get that. I don't care about these guys at all.
Yeah.
And I think most of them don't make this. Some of them might make the practice squad. I don't think the guys they brought in today are extraordinarily likely to make the roster, except for the cornerback from Detroit, which we can get into. But overall, I think they've done a fairly good job of trying to hedge the risk. I think the discussion you can have is more about like what's the overall strategy and where haven't they invested dollars, right? And I think that's where some of my concerns come in. But for the dollars they have spent, I would say I think they've done a pretty decent job when you look at the free agents they've brought in at structuring the contracts reasonably in a safe manner where they can get out pretty quickly.
Yeah, no, I do agree with all that. And honestly, you brought a point that I don't know, we haven't really talked about yet because we've been on topic for agency, and it's been a side note to that. We went in. What's the big move we make because we need to get a pass catcher? And we did these Paris Campbell moves, brought back Darius Slayton, those type of things. We expected some bargain bin guys, but we knew there was going to be something. There were some thoughts of tight end with Dalton Schultz or Mike Gesicki, which wouldn't have really moved the needle that much, but would have helped. There was DeAndre Hopkins, but everyone kind of shot that one down. Didn't happen. Then out of nowhere, we traded for a third for Darren Waller. We flipped the Kadarius Toney pick for it. Yeah. I don't know about you guys. I mean, I talked to you guys a little bit about it, so I'm sure I got an idea what you're doing. But I was hyped about that one because, the logic that I used for going after like a Dalton Schultz or Gesicki was that like tight ends just don't get paid the way that wide receivers do. So you get a top 10 tight end and you're paying them like a wide receiver 2 or 3. While with Darren Waller, you took that up one more level, and he is barely getting paid out like a wide receiver 2. He's getting paid like Jacoby Myers, and that guy, when healthy, is a legitimate like wide receiver 1 weapon. I've said it for a while now. I think tight end is the best contract in football right now. It's the best deal you can get if you can get a difference maker at the tight end position, which is where this wide receiver market has gone. And you see a lot of these successful teams have good tight ends. So, but yeah, I really like that one. Sal, what was your thoughts on it?
I loved it. I thought that was the best move of the offseason, honestly. I don't know. I know I've seen some people criticize the move, and I don't know how you can criticize that move because this is a guy. I mean, just to understand who Darren Waller is, when he's been healthy, and his injuries were fairly flukish the last couple of years, but when he's been healthy, he's clearly a top 5, arguably a top 3 pass catching tight end in the NFL. He was a wide receiver when he came out of college, when he was in Baltimore, and he interestingly does not have the physical wear and tear on his body that I think a lot of tight ends at his age do, simply because he struggled with a lot of addiction issues. I think he was addicted to opioids and alcohol, and he had to go through rehab. So he missed some significant time before he landed on the Raiders. And it's a pretty interesting story how he got his life back on track, which is very respectful. Great player. I mean, at the end of the day, you're giving up, pick number 100, which if you look at who the pick number 100 generally is and the guys who fall in that range, basically a 4th-round pick.
It's Matt Parrott.
Yeah, exactly. It's Matt Parrott and it's guys like that. It's a compensation pick. So the challenge, I mean, the probability you're going to get that any kind of impact starter year, at all, much less year 1 at that pick is so low. So you traded a low probability, proposition for an impact starter for a guaranteed top 5 tight end in the NFL at a great value of a contract, which we haven't even touched on. His contract is non-guaranteed.
Yeah.
And he has a really solid value in his contract at the beginning in terms of the base salary, which is, by the way, one of the cheats, right? When you trade for guys who have been paid for, you're only trading for their base salary. The signing bonus and a lot of the guaranteed money has already been eaten by the original team. So there is value there. So when you can get a guy like that for pick 100 and you're not paying much and you have a lot of room on the cap with him to play around with, which they already did. They converted his salary into a bonus for this year and squeezed out some more cap space. I think that's a great get. From a football side, Monty, I know you and I talked about it. This kind of goes back to the big thing, they're trying to build something around Daniel Jones, whether you liked it or not, whether you agree with it or not. They invested in Daniel Jones and they paid him like a top 7 quarterback in the NFL. You need to see him produce like one. And one of the best arguments to make for it was that he just didn't have a downfield target, a guy he can trust to be a big receiver. Where Darren Waller definitely qualifies, right?
Yeah.
He's a guy that wins, not with separation, but just he wins downfield. You watch him on film, he gets draped by linebackers, draped by safeties, and he just catches 50-50 balls. He catches competitive balls. And he's the kind of guy your quarterback has to develop faith in and just throw the ball up to him, and he generally wins. So this is a great addition to the team, but it's also a great test to see, hey, can Daniel Jones actually win with a guy like this? Can he add this element to his game? Because if he can, that completely changes the dynamic of him as a quarterback and what he offers this offense. So I think this move made a lot of sense.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense from, not just the team, but also Daniel Jones. What did you think of it, Sarge?
Any on my team, all for it. And Darren Waller is an absolute monster. Like Sal said, when he's healthy, he's a top 5. He's a top 5 tight end. I mean, he's right up there with Kelsey and Kittle and was a guy from Baltimore, Andrews or whatever. That's the guy you want. Give me a big nasty tight end. You know what? And that's the thing is, like, you guys like Shockey, guys like Bavaro, Kevin Boss, those guys who are like your safety net for but a lot faster than all of them. I mean, if you think about it too, I mean, he's kind of got that same build. He's a little bit smaller than, say, Darnell Washington from Georgia, who I'm absolutely in love with. So, yeah, man, I was super excited. And and especially since he's kind of like talked about how he's adjusted his offseason training program so he can at the wrong time so that he's like, I'm not going to be worn out by the time the season starts. I'm just going to kind of be in that upward area so that, you know, he's really looking to get back on the field and stay on the field. So I'm super excited. Eric's got a good point. What do you think Bellinger's role looks like now? You know, it hasn't changed. You know, is that putting Darren Waller on this team gives defenses another guy that they have to scheme for. Okay. Bellinger in year 2 you're going to see a big increase in his production because of Darren Waller on the other side. Because like the Giants like to run a lot of personnel. So that's 2 times. So they're going to be focused on Darren Waller and not on the 4th round, 2nd year play. We already know what Bellinger, he's a good damn tight end. And he's just going to get better. And giving him a veteran tight end like Darren Waller is just going to push him even more. And you're going to see, I mean, these guys in the red zone are going to be monsters. You know, they're a mismatch for defenses in the middle. You know, it's going to be great to see it. And I don't think this does not diminish your Daniel Bellinger. If anything, it kind of pushes Lawrence Cager into that tight end number 3, which is kind of where he is in the first place.
Yeah, if he even makes it. I mean, they complement each other very well. The skill sets they have are kind of what the other lacks. I mean, Bellinger is a great run blocking tight end, but he doesn't offer much from a, you know, after the catch or really just as like a dynamic receiver. He has very strong hands. He's what you want in a tight end. He can block and he will not drop the ball. Those are 2 really important things. And you can leave it up to your coaches to scheme these guys open. But yeah, no, I think you'll see a lot of Bellinger still. And I still think they really believe in him. I think you'll see a lot of Darren Waller lined up off the line, like outside the line of scrimmage in the slot, even outside. I think you'll see Bellinger stay on the line, and you'll see Waller moving all over, and you'll see some two tight end sets. I mean, you look at a guy like Dable, who was the tight end coach when Gronk and Aaron Hernandez were in New England, and that, you know, the best tight end duo ever, you know, off field aside. But yeah, I think that it's going to be a good situation, those 2. And I trust these offensive coaches to find ways to use their players like to the most effective way they can, just what helps the team the best. So yeah, I think that they'll be good together. What do you think about them together, Sal?
I think we're going to see a ton of 12 personnel. I mean, I agree. I think the question, you know, what does it do for Bellinger? It's a fair question. I think the Giants are high on Bellinger. I'm still pretty high on Bellinger. I think he's a good tight end. I think in his best role, he's probably not yet in his career a tight end 1. I think the main issue with him is he does everything well. It's just, I think in a dynamic offense, he's not somebody who's likely to drag, you know, safeties and linebackers in a vertical threat. And that's the big issue, right? It's not a huge issue if he's a tight end, but it's a dynamic aspect of his game that he just doesn't have yet, I would say. And I don't know if he will have that. When you can run 12 personnel with a guy who's basically like a giant X receiver in Waller, right, essentially, and lining up in not really lining up in the X, or lining up in the slot or off the line of scrimmage, and you run 12 personnel, I think you're going to see a lot of bunch formation. You know, with 12 personnel, I think you're going to see just really creative ways to use these guys to create mismatches. And that obviously creates reliable pass catchers. But I think more importantly, as much as they want to probably get away from being so run heavy, it's a dynamic for the run game that's important, right? If you can run a 12 personnel offense especially out of like a bunch formation where your tight ends can block and they can pass receive, it keeps the defense on their toes, right? They don't know if you're running a run play. They don't know if you're running a pass play. Whereas, you know, if you bring in a tight end who can't block, but who's great at, like if you sign Mike Gesicki, for example, right, to be your extra tight end,
Yeah.
When he's on the field, like that's a pass play, like unless he's a
Mhm.
decoy, right? So he's fairly useless in the run game. I think in this situation, you have guys who can do both, and I feel like they're going to try to take advantage of the run game out of these 12 personnel sets, and then just kind of use the middle of the field. I expect to see a lot of mesh concepts out of this, where these guys are dragging linebackers away, and you've got crossers coming, in the short and intermediate area. It just seems to be a very Kansas City way of doing things. So
Yeah.
it's going to be interesting to see how they do it, but it sort of makes sense with the kind of guys they're bringing in on the wide receiver end, right? Like when you see like that they're going with like 12 personnel, that's probably going to be a staple of their offense. All of a sudden, you kind of want the fast, shifty guys, right? Who can take
Yeah.
advantage of that underneath stuff. So I think you're seeing them bring in some
Right.
guys like that. Even though Campbell is not small, he's fast and shifty. He fits that mold. So it's interesting how they'll do it. But I think that's how they're planning on running their offense.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think they're bringing in like with these low budget wide receivers is they're getting guys that make us better football team. They're with like a Darius Slayton, it's he's been productive and you can say all that for him, but it's also just when he's on the field, you're more likely that defense has to stay honest because he can take the top off of it. And same with Paris Campbell, he was a good vertical threat this year. So there's a lot of different dynamics that no matter if it's going to show up on the box score, hopefully you can have Waller for that, who can really be a true number one, that you're getting guys that you can keep defenses honest and also leave yourself a lot of options how to work on within an offense. So there's another interesting thing that I was looking up earlier today. I don't know if you guys have ever gone on it. There's like a website. I think it's Draft Sharks, but basically what they do is they have an injury predictor. They have like a sports injury predictor. And I was going on there and I was checking out Darren Waller and Paris
That's
Campbell, and
horrifying.
essentially what?
I said that's
but
horrifying.
Yeah. But essentially you go on there and if they have like repeats of injuries in the same places or injuries that tend to, linger and cause more injuries over time, they increases your chance of getting injuries, and they predict the amount of injuries you'll have per season and things like that. Interesting enough, they both came in as low injury risks. Darren Waller, his projected missed games was, still 2 games for the season, but they didn't see him as like a huge injury risk based off of the injuries gotten. Paris Campbell actually, weirdly enough, has gotten a very low and only got 1.5. So, it's just, whatever calculation they used based off of what they're getting, they're just not assuming that these injuries are going to repeat. So, hopefully that is the case. And hopefully it will be a thing where these guys have had a couple years of some shitty injury luck and we can start to move forward. So, I thought it was worth mentioning. Thought this was a good question here, Eric. From 1 to 10, what's your concern, the interior offensive line? I know Sal was talking at some point a little bit about his worry about how we were spending in free agency and where we haven't allocated. So I'll let you lead us off here, Sal. Where do you rank us on that? And
Now, Eric hit on the head. That's my biggest concern is interior offensive line and not having invested in it. Now, I was never a big fan of John Feliciano. I'm not going to cry over him not being on this team. However, we have not added any interior offensive linemen, and we just lost a guy who was basically not only our starting center, but the guy who's calling all our protections.
yeah,
And for those who don't realize it, in this first year in this offense, you hope Daniel Jones can do it going forward, but in the first year in this offense, Feliciano called most of the line protections. And so you do lose a guy who's helpful at the very minimum. They haven't added anybody. Not a fan of Glowinski. I don't think he played poorly relative to how he plays. I think he just plays like that. That's the kind of player he is.
yeah,
He's okay in run support. He's not a very good pass blocker. And Izudu, I have a lot of faith in the future, but he was coming along and then he got injured and he had that neck injury, which hopefully is not serious. But even if he's healthy, he didn't get the reps he needed as a developmental guard, right?
Yeah.
So I'm very concerned about our depth at that position, at those positions, and that's really what killed this team. Now we're assuming, by the way, that Evan Neal is going to be, better.
Yeah.
Because if he's not better, the season is toast anyway. But
Yeah.
but assuming he's better, and I think he will be, I have a lot of faith in Evan Neal. Then the interior offensive line right now is, to me, the one big glaring weakness on this team. And if you don't shore it up, especially since you're basically bringing in a big target in Waller who needs time to get plays to develop down the field. And I've made this point on Spaces that, Daniel Jones is not known to be a guy who's a quick trigger passer. He's somebody who takes that extra quarter second to throw the ball. I mean, it's like, to the normal human eye and perception, it's almost a perceptible difference. But at the NFL level, that little difference is the difference between like the top quarterbacks and the bottom quarterbacks in terms of speed and processing. So if you want to maximize what you get out of this offense, I really hope they bulk up the interior offensive line. You need to build a wall up there to give,
especially if you want to start stretching the field.
Exactly. You want these plays to be able to have a chance to develop. And you didn't bring Waller here to run, 5-yard outs. You brought him here to stretch the field a little bit on vertical threats. So I'm very concerned about it. I hope they get somebody. I would like them to, I ideally would like them to get a guard and a center in the veteran market to at least have its depth. At minimum, I think we need a veteran center to come in and be there as depth. I know they're thinking about playing Bredesen there. But this is a strong center class. I know you and I've talked about it. There are great centers in this class, in the draft class, many of whom are plug and play starters. I think that is true, but that's a lot to ask of a rookie, right? Get drafted, start at center right away, learn the offense, learn the protections. And for those folks who remember, I mean, the language we use, at least what Dable uses, the Earhart Perkins system, he uses essentially like one word calls, and it means like eight different things. So there's a very dense playbook that these guys have to memorize and know, and and understand. And it's a big learning curve for any rookie to come in and run the offensive line that way. So even though I love some of the centers in this draft, I'd like to think we can get a veteran who understands some of these things. So I'd like a center. If possible, I'd like a guard too, because I'm very worried about our guard depth in terms of quality. And my fear is that if we don't address those situations meaningfully in both free agency and the draft, that's the big glaring weakness that could easily derail this season. And that would be a shame because they've invested money into Jones. They're paying Saquon to come back. You want to see the interior offensive line at least to be competent so that you give these guys a chance to do what they can.
Yeah. No, it's definitely a worry. It's, I'm probably at probably a 5 on it where I am. Because I do think we'll address it in the draft, and I do think there's upside for these guys, but yeah, I don't. My 5 is probably more my confidence. My worry is probably more like a 6 or like a 7. But
yeah,
I don't know. Like, I feels a little bit like a couple years ago where we were kind of banking on a bunch of people with like when Matt Pert was going into the starter, and we were banking on a lot of people to take the next step. I think it would go a long way if we addressed a couple times interior line in this draft and gave us just more chances and more guys that we can put in, and more free agents, whatever it may be. Multiple people probably need to get brought in to help this out. Because like I said, like Ben Bredesen, I'm not against bringing him in and letting him try to starter, but he's making a switch to center. And I also looked at him as a guy who could be good depth. Like, he was a guy who you can move throughout the interior of the offensive line and help you out. If he's starting, then you kind of lose the depth there.
Yeah, I agree. He's like a perfect, 7th offensive lineman, in my opinion, right? He's like, you want your top 5 starters, you want your 6th guy to be a really good swing tackle, and you want that 7th guy to be a swing interior lineman who can kind of play everywhere. And to me, Bredesen is an amazing 7th lineman, really. But if you're forcing him to a starting role, either at guard or at center, you're hurting yourself in 2 ways. And my level of concern, just to answer the original question, my level of concern is like 7 to 8 right now. It really is. Maybe I'm a little paranoid, but I think they need to address that in a hurry.
Yeah. Sarge, what's your opinion? Where are you on it?
See, I'm at the other end of the spectrum. My worry is about a 4.
Okay.
And I'll tell you why. Right now, we've got 14 offensive linemen on the roster. Are they all great? No. Do we need some work there? Yes. Are we going to address this in the draft? Definitely. Are we going to address this in free agency? Probably. Let's remember, guys, it's only we're in the second week of free agency. There's still a bunch of guards and a couple of centers who are still out there. And the longer they're out there, the lower the numbers are going to be, which is always good for us because, we're looking to make sure that we're in a healthy cap space here as well. And we've got that money to move around for the rest of the year. I'm not super worried. I mean, we'll see what we've got. I mean, we're getting, the McKeithen looked great in training camp until he got hurt. And, they were really, really confident in him and Ezeudu, and we'll see what happens, where Ezeudu's at when he comes back from this neck injury thing he had going on. We brought back Wyatt Davis, is that? I'm thinking that's his name. I was looking at the roster just now and seeing, but we have, legitimately we have 14 or 15 offensive linemen on the current roster. And we'll see what we got in training camp, and that's the thing is, I don't think this is not a problem that we have to worry about in March. I mean, it's not even, we really don't have to worry about this until August, once training camp hits. I mean, we're going to get how many offensive linemen did we bring in over the course of the past 3 years just to have guys retire in camp?
That wasn't great.
Do you remember that, Monty?
Yeah, that wasn't fun.
That wasn't a fun.
That was
no.
It was comical, but it wasn't fun.
Yeah, it was comical because we keep like, oh, we're gonna bring in this right tackle. Oh, he was here for 5 minutes and then retired. I think that happened twice. So yeah, I mean, am I concerned? Mildly, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is what I want to see is I want to see faster processing from our $40 million quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need the offensive line to hold up for 5.5 minutes. I want the ball out quick. We're going to have a lot of moving parts in this offense. You're going to see a lot of stuff that you haven't seen in the past, like even last year, because these guys, we're bringing in all sorts of new guys. Everybody we're bringing in is fast. We're bringing in fast because we want the ball out of DJ's hands fast. We want him processing fast. We don't need the offensive line to hold up for 10, 12 seconds because we want the ball out of his hands in under 3. We want it snapped and out. We want it gone,
Yeah.
So I'll worry about it later. I'll worry about the offensive line when I need to worry about the offensive line. When we show up to training camp and we're like, who the fuck are these guys?
That's fair.
I mean, we're all banking on we all want Evan Neal to do well, right?
Yeah,
I feel like he's going to do well. He's going to be working this offseason. He already is doing it because he's hearing all the noise from all of us, who are already talking about bust or kicking him inside to guard or whatever. We just want the guy to. We want to go through a game without hearing his name. Because that's how you judge offensive line play, right? As long as they're not calling the offensive line guy's name, he's obviously doing a good job because they're not talking about him and he's not drawing penalties. There's still plenty of time, right? So this is the thing, and I wouldn't be surprised by this, right? We're going to be a little quiet for the next couple of weeks. We're going to see how the draft shakes out, and then we're going to bring in more people. I almost guarantee it.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Well, once camp starts, once we start thinking about off-season workouts and things like that, that's when you'll hear oh, we just brought in this offensive guard. We brought in this guy who plays guard and center because we're going to look at a bunch of different things. We're well in the first wave of free agency. We got the draft coming up in a couple of weeks. We don't need to break the bank now. we're gonna see how things play out, because they might might draft. We have what, not 10 picks. We might draft 3 interior offensive linemen and not have to worry about it.
Yeah, never know. And yeah, I mean, as of right now, I don't think we're making another big splash in free agency unless
Not
we
until
do
we
something.
sign Odell.
Yeah, signing Odell. Unless we do something drastic, we extend Leo, trade Leo, extend Adoree, trade Adoree. I don't think we're trading Adoree, but like something like that, restructure, whatever it may be. We're probably not making anything big. It's probably only like more like minor deals. So yeah, we'll see.
There's going to be a lot of signings like there were like the end of last week and the beginning of this week. The signings?
Yeah.
Like who's that? Who's Tommy Sweeney?
Yeah.
Jeff Smith is not a real name. I'm sorry. Jeff Smith is a name you use when you're checking into a hotel under an alias.
That's like a Madden generated player name.
That is a Madden generated player name. That's what we're like. You're gonna get a bunch of those. That like, who are these guys? I don't know who this dude is. He's the 4th offensive lineman in Kansas City. I guess that's what we're gonna see. We're gonna see a bunch of those.
A lot of those 51 rule exception guys that we were working with last year.
Hey, we got to have 90 coming into camp. Yeah. Not everybody's going to start. We got to have 90.
So here's a question for you guys. Were any of those names that kind of been popping up recently, did anybody of those names stand out to you guys as guys you think could be something for us?
I mean, the cornerback out of Detroit that we just signed.
Yeah, what's his name?
Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
Oruwariye, I think.
Yeah,
that's how you say it, right?
Amani O is what I've been seeing.
Right.
That's his Twitter.
Right. So I mean, he's a good player. He's tall. He's a good press man corner. He has ball skills. Like, he has a history of picking off the football.
6 picks in 2011 or 2021.
Exactly.
He's got 9 career.
Yeah, no, he's a ball hawk. He kind of fell out of favor in Aaron Glenn's defense for some reason. I don't know exactly why. They didn't exactly have the best secondary. But I think that's one of those players, like, maybe he's not good anymore, but he at least has a resume of being a ball hawk, something we could use.
Yeah.
So he's tall. He can handle press. I think that's a guy who I can see not only making this team, but being sort of like the Fabian Moreau this year.
Mm-hmm.
Like the low-key guy who, like, if injury hits, he can step in and be a competent second cornerback on this team. So I like that signing.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. Yeah, I have a buddy who's a Lions fan. I was talking to him a little bit today. He spoke highly of him. He said he had a bad year this year, and he said he got benched. But he said for the most part, like, if you're not bringing him in to necessarily like rely on him, he's a good guy to have. He's he started games for them, and he did. He will get turnovers. But yeah, I mean, I think one thing with a lot of these, what I like about these lower end signings and these vet signings, if you could say anything about this front office and what they did last year, it's really like how well they did with, like the mention, like a Fabian Moreau type, with getting Isaiah Hodgins, they wrote Tommy Sweeney could be somewhat of that, where he grabbed him from Buffalo and they might know a little bit more about him. So, I'm excited to see if they can, recapture that and continue to just add pieces on the cheap. But no, go on.
Okay. No, you talk about value, like we were just talking about the value of tight ends in this market, where pass receiving receivers are so bloated in their contracts and cap hits. One of the biggest values I think a lot of people don't talk about are just guys who are drafted a few years ago who may find themselves in a bad situation, right, or a bad fit, and they're talented. And you go back almost like you're treating them like a draft pick 2 years later. You look at their athletic profile, you look at how they produced in college, you see some glimpses of how they did, And then you try to understand, like, maybe their production fell off in the NFL because they were a bad scheme fit or they got in the doghouse or whatever it was. I think pro scouting is an area of immense potential value acquisition. And Chris Rossetti is the guy who did that for us, right? And he did a phenomenal job last year. So I know people scoff and laugh at some of these guys we pick up. And I mean, and trust me, the people who know me, at least from Twitter space and stuff and from Twitter, like, I'm always looking at things kind of like with a skeptical eye, and a suspicious of it. But I think you have to be fair that the Giants have done a great job of pro scouting. They find guys who they think will produce well, at least temporarily, in their system, and there's tremendous value in that because otherwise you're spending real draft capital to find these guys. So if you can get a backup cornerback, like a cornerback 3, who's a backup boundary corner, and a guy like Oruwariye, I mean, that would cost you a day 2 pick if you think about it, in the draft. So that's tremendous value if you can turn into that.
So, and I'll say one other guy that is an interesting name that came up was Bobby McCain, and I know that one came with a lot of people looked, and he was like, I think literally the worst like coverage stats in the league last year. But all I know is that here's a couple things about that where I was like, all right, this is I could definitely get behind this in some senses because he's a guy who has safety cornerback versatility, which is valuable. You're getting this guy probably for nothing, and he has 38 starts over his career. Like he had a bad year last year, and he's had bad, seasons. Hasn't been great, but he's been starting over people for a reason. And I was talking to some people, some Washington fans. I have some friends who are Dolphins fans, and they all of them spoke really highly of him. Not necessarily like he's like this great player, but kind of like how we speak about Julian Love in the sense of like he is a great guy to have around. Like it was a great pickup for you guys because he is like an awesome teammate to have. So like those type of things, if he can just be like a contributor and you can keep him out of the situations where he can get exposed, which clearly he was put in those situations last year based off of those stats, that he's very athletic too. I actually think that could be a better signing than what people are giving it credit for right now, which understandably so. I know the stats don't look good for him. But
I mean, if you think about it, everybody who we picked up off the street last year like contributed in some way, shape, or form. We signed guys off. They, everybody likes to say the trash heap. We brought in guys because we couldn't afford them. Couldn't afford, guys who big names. Like Isaac, he's buried on the depth because he's playing behind, Diggs and McKenzie and everybody else over there. We brought him here and he's instantly producing, and we brought him back, thank God, because he was great when he was great. He was really, really good. Let's just say that. But he has the ability to kind of like, exactly. He has that. We have that. He has that ability to like, let's see what he does with a full season. And, and he's not going to cost you an arm or he's not going to cost you draft picks. The guys we're bringing in now are that we don't have that kind of depth, because if the past couple of years, like somebody gets hurt out on, in corner, what are we doing? We sticking like Isaac Yadam out there and, Corey Ballantyne couldn't get his head out of his ass. And, does he even, I don't even know if he's still in the league. I don't pay attention to once they're off the team. I don't care. But our pro personnel scouting department brought all these guys in and they were contributing because these guys are still professional football players. They get paid to play football. They may not be all pros or pro bowlers or whatever, but they're going to come in and they're going to give you serviceable snaps. And that's what we got out of a lot of these guys. That's why we brought a bunch of them back. We brought back Isaiah Hodgins and, Wyatt Davis and some of these other guys, because if you show that you can be useful, we'll find a use for you. right? Things I'm hearing about, like guys like Jeff Smith, is he's fast. You know, is he going to be is he going to get snaps at wide receiver? Probably not. Is he going to punt return? Maybe. Is he a gunner on special teams? Who knows? But he's going to at least get the opportunity to contribute in some way, shape, or form. And that's why, again, like Sal said, is that pro scouting is so super important, and why our pro scouting department did such a great job last year, and they don't get enough credit. Yeah. I don't think.
No, they really didn't. They don't cross the league, so definitely good to get some recognition for our pro scouts. I think our fan base is starting to notice how well that went. But yeah, I mean, do you guys have any other free agents that you want to bring up? Anything with that?
Nobody that we signed. Like I said, if I had to put any money anywhere, whatever money they can conjure up at this point, I'd like to see them get a veteran center.
Yeah,
I know we have bodies for guard. Sarge's point is well taken. We do have guys, and hopefully they've learned something in the system and they can handle the role. I think center is a unique beast, and you want somebody who can call protection. So I hope they can find a way to get their hands on one of these veteran centers. Even if it's a guy like who's a little over the hill, like Rodney Hudson, for a 1-year deal. Just somebody who understands the position while you draft somebody else to essentially take over. That's an area where I'm hoping they find a body. I know they tried out J.C. Hassenauer the other day. He's not very good, but I think the fact that they were trying him out tells you that they're looking for somebody with some experience playing center. So that's all I'm looking at is guys like him.
Yeah, I'm with you. And Rodney Hudson, I put out some of the connections that our coaching staff has to people, and Bobby Johnson was he was a tight end coach, to be fair, but he was in Oakland with Rodney Hudson. So
okay,
maybe an interesting connection where there's some familiarity there, and maybe a guy that we could bring in. So I mentioned a little bit over the hill, but he was a great center at one point in time. So get him on a cheap discount.
Even if he's just a backup center, right?
Yeah.
And your rookie ends up starting. I think having a guy with experience handling the position is important. So I'll keep pushing that propaganda till it happens.
Yeah.
Did anybody sign that center for Tennessee? Ben Jones?
Brett Jones? I don't think so.
No, but I haven't looked at their depth chart. I'm not sure if they've addressed the position of the draft in the last few years. But I don't think they've signed anybody.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if he got signed. That's the thing, he's still out there.
No, he's out there. I think he's pretty close to retiring, to be honest. I'm not sure what he has left in the tank, but yeah, he's another guy you could bring in as a veteran presence.
Yeah, should be interesting. Another one was I saw today was that we brought in Brian Edwards for a visit. That one I thought was interesting. Not a slot body like all these other guys. Again, we looked some height.
He's way too tall for us.
Yeah, he won't. Brian Dable will take one look at him and be like, "You're not a slot wide receiver."
He's too tall. Get him out of here.
I was way too high on that man coming out of college, so I'm all for it. I'm still waiting for him to, it only fueled me more. Where I was like, I love this guy. He's gonna be a star. And then training camp comes around and John Gruden's like, man, this guy's Terrell Owens, and Derek Carr's like, this guy reminds me of Devontae Adams. Like, see, it's gonna happen. It never happened.
Never happened.
But that'd be an interesting one. I mean, all these bodies. I mean, with all the wide receiver injuries we had last year, more wide receiver bodies we can have in camp and have guys who know our system that we can bring in if we have any injuries, put in our practice squad. That's a good thing in my mind.
I think our practice squad is going to be only wide receivers.
The way it went last year, it might be the best route for us.
Well, hopefully the new turf keeps us from blowing out our knee every other day. So I'm hoping we actually hold on to some.
That's right. We're getting new turf.
Yeah.
MetLife is getting new turf.
Might be the biggest offseason acquisition we make, honestly.
It's new turf.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. But yeah, I mean, we only have a little bit of time here left, but I want to just touch real quickly. There's been a lot of draft stuff going around. We'll just stick to the first round right now. We we had dinner with Jackson Smith-Njigba. We're having dinner with Zay Flowers tonight. It seems like we kind of addressed some pass catchers. So maybe cornerback is there anybody that like, who are you guys really hoping to get? Do you have anybody in mind that you really want? I'll let you start, Sarge. Do you have anyone?
We're talking first round one.
Yeah.
We're talking first round.
Yeah. Let's just talk 25 right now.
Wait a minute. Where's my list? I have lists.
You got a list?
I got lists. Let's see.
You have a piece of paper. That's amazing.
Physical. I write stuff down, man.
That's awesome.
I'm a list guy, and I have other stuff up on my phone right now, so I can't go back. Let's see. Who did I say? Jesus. I mean, you know me, dude. I am, JSN, or Jalen Hyatt.
Jalen Hyatt.
That's my guy. Jalen Hyatt is my guy.
You have been a Jalen Hyatt guy.
Or if we go corner and was it Devontae Banks is still around?
Deontay Banks.
I will say though there was, oh gosh, who are all those guys out of Maryland?
Banks is one of them.
Deontay Banks is one of them.
There was a
Jacorian Bennett is the other one.
Yep, him. But that's later. He's later on.
Yeah,
he's not around one.
Yeah.
But I mean, I got to start watching more Terp football, man. Those guys, they just put out wide receivers and corners like crazy.
Yeah, you actually have a bunch of them in this class.
Yeah. Man. I was talking to Sal about this week, but I've been grinding my corner tape this week because I'm really thinking that might be the route we go. I could see Zay Flowers because I think he could be there. I'm praying JSN or Addison are going to be there, but who knows? I think it's going to be a surprise if they are, but you just never know. But man, Deontay Banks, you bring him up. That guy is a fucking dog.
It's unreal.
It's
unreal.
He's so aggressive and to his detriment. Like I see that guy get flagged way too often, but I actually wanted to bring one clip because I was watching this.
Is it the clip?
Yeah, it's the clip. You know exactly. There is a play. You'll see him at the bottom of the screen where he just takes a wide receiver and pushes him 8 yards in the backfield, like right here at the bottom. I think he got flagged for that one too. He plays like that all the time though. He does not fuck around, and he is so athletic and so strong. I'm all in on Deontay Banks if he's there. I'd be all for it.
I mean, and the thing is too, the draft is such a shoot because everybody spends months and months and months doing mock draft after mock draft after mock draft, and then something happens draft night that throws everybody for a loop, except for the people who do this professionally.
Yeah, we're gonna be
as far as
for Jalen Carter or something.
He's
still on the board.
Yeah,
I know.
So yeah, it's always something. I remember the days of screaming for Miles Jack.
Oh.
It's always someone to follow. So yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens. Yeah, I'm the way I am JSN is my number one, Addison's my number two, and I want corner after that. And I really kind of want to stay away from center round one. Where's your mind at with it, Sal?
Yeah, I'm exactly where you are. I think I believe in drafting to the strength of the class. Like last year was cool. I think our coaches proved that with real good coaching, you could take not so great roster, turn it into a winner, which is exciting. But I think that shouldn't stray from the reality that this roster has a ton of holes. You want to get to the point where you're able to go 2-3 deep in terms of personnel at every position, the way Philly does, right? Otherwise, you can't beat those guys. So the best way to get there is to draft best player available with positional value in mind, right? And in the first round, where we're drafting at 25, it's a deep cornerback class. Really? It's probably corner. The only two guys other than, again, like a freakish occurrence like Jalen Carter or somebody who should be a consensus top 10 pick, like a Lucas Van Ness or something. For whatever reason, if they start falling, you gotta grab those guys, or Nolan Smith, a guy we don't
Mhm.
talk about much because I don't think a lot of people believe he'll be here, but absolute freak, right, of an athlete who could play pretty much anywhere on the linebacking core or on the line. Um, Barring something like that, it would be JSN and Addison would be the only two receivers I would take above the corners.
Yeah.
My corner ranking in order is probably Gonzalez 1, Witherspoon 2. I think Porter and Banks are close, and I wouldn't be
Mhm.
surprised if Banks actually was off the board before Porter. But I think if let's say all 6 of them are gone, right?
Mhm.
There's the 2 receivers, and then Banks, Porter, Gonzalez, and Witherspoon are all off the board, and you're facing, which is not an implausible
No,
situation.
it's
It can
possible.
absolutely, yeah. I mean, you can see like when these guys start going, you know how it is on draft night, like cornerback, like it'll go like that. So it's possible you get to 25, and what you're faced with is a decision of, are you taking Zay Flowers or are you taking the next best corner, right? And that's, I
Mhm.
think, sometimes a difficult choice. The next 2 corners in my mind are probably, I'm going to leave Keely Ringo out of this. I've told you this. I think the man's a safety.
Mhm.
I know I piss off my Georgia buddies when I say that, but I really believe he's a safety. Like, I don't think he
You're
has,
not wrong. You're not
yeah.
wrong.
Yeah, he doesn't. I've watched him all year. I watch a lot of college football. I don't think he has a lateral agility to hang. Like, he's great backtracking. He's fast. He's strong, and
Mhm.
going on vertical routes. But when you're facing guys who are
Great
running like
vertical
sharp,
routes.
absolutely. But when you're facing guys who are running sharp slants and crossers and mesh and a lot of the stuff we see in today's NFL, like, he just has a hard time, keeping up and turning his
Mhm.
hips and being as twitchy as you need to be. So I'll leave him out of it. The next 2 guys up on the list are Cam Smith and Emmanuel Forbes. And to be honest, I think I would take either one of those guys over Zay Flowers at that position. I like Zay Flowers. Don't get me wrong. I think he's a really great player. What bothers me about him in the first round is he's 5'9", and he's got a 10th or 13% percentile wingspan.
Mhm.
Um, he does play on the outside at Boston College and inside, so he has that versatility. But there's a difference playing on the outside in the ACC and playing on the outside in the NFL. And guys with his wingspan, I think, will struggle on the outside in the NFL. Like, they're largely guys who they tend to be confined to the slot unless they have some freakish wingspan, right?
Yeah.
Or some freakish hand size or something like that. And so it's kind of an outlier strategy if you are taking him to be an outside receiver. If you're taking him to be a slot, I think he's going to be an amazing one. He's a great route runner. I know a lot of people I've seen have said they like him more than Jordan Addison. I could not disagree with that more at all. There's a difference, in my opinion, between being a precise route runner, which is what I think Zay Flowers is, and being a nuanced, outstanding route runner like what Addison is. Addison's a guy who runs a perfect route, but he can sense where the defense is heading in zone, and he will change his acceleration. He will change his route ever so subtly, and all of a sudden, like, for no reason whatsoever, even the guy, though he doesn't look that fast, he has 3, 4, 5, 6 yards of separation, and that's a skill. I don't think that's
Yeah.
easy to acquire. So Flowers is not that. He's more like we talked about. He's more like an Elijah Moore type. Runs great
Mhm.
routes. He's a small guy, strong guy. I wouldn't take him. So I would probably go, JSN, Addison as my top 2 at that spot. If they're not there, Banks, Porter. If they're not there, I'm actually going to go with either Cam Smith or Emmanuel Forbes before I go Zay Flowers.
Yeah.
That's how I would approach it.
I'm similar a little bit with that. Do you have any opinions on Zay Flowers, Sarge? I've seen him. We're having dinner with him tonight. I've seen him mocked a lot. Have you looked into him at all?
Yeah, I did. I liked what I saw out of him at Boston College. I did watch a bunch of Boston College. Oh man, now I'm spacing on names tonight. It's not great. Who was their quarterback?
Phil Jerkovich.
Yeah,
Yeah, because
he's good.
we're talking about him at the beginning of the college season as being like,
Mhm.
one of those big names to watch as far as quarterbacks go. And I was
Yeah.
like, who's this kid, like, catching every, I mean, he yes, you're not. He's not a big guy. He doesn't have like really long arms or stuff like that. But the guy's he's a sure-handed like pass catcher, and he runs great routes.
Yes.
I started watching a little bit of Jordan Addison film, and some of the highlight stuff that I saw. I'm like, why am I watching Kenny Pickett? And then I realized, oh, wait a minute.
Yeah, he's a fit.
He transferred to USC this year, and he went after Kenny got drafted, and so he transferred. Yep. So I'm like, oh, I watched a ton of Pitt games before Kenny Pickett came out, and I didn't put two and two together right away because they don't always have the names on the back of the jersey.
No, you usually don't. I feel like
nothing. So no, I mean, like I'm gonna be excited for the draft. I've been watching highlights and stuff like that, and when I have free time, which I generally don't. So, I mean, who knows? We'll see what happens in a couple weeks for the draft, but I think that's a good place to kind of wrap it up for tonight. So, because it's late and you boys are on the East Coast, are up past your bedtime. So we want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. We want to thank Sal for filling in. Sal, we appreciate it. Remember, everyone, Sal is not a content creator.
That's right.
Very important. Sal, not a content creator. Exactly. So if you don't already, go follow Sal on Twitter. And it's Sal, it's right. It's at Queens Guy. Is that? Because I have like one or two more other Sals that I follow.
Yeah, it's
apparently
at Queens _guy.
Yeah. Sal is a popular name in the tri-state area. Who figured? So so we want to thank Sal for stepping in for tonight. We want to shout out Big Smooth, who's at home with the family. Shout out to Big Smooth and the new baby. And we want to ask you guys to don't forget to like and subscribe. I remembered this week. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And we'll be back with you next week. Monty.
We're out.
Scratching the beards. And we're out. You guys have a good one. Swear to God, next week will be better. We're back into practice. I'm still used to having the lights on. It's nuts. Darkness retreats are real, kids.
All right. See you guys.
Take care, guys.